Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. There's just something about climbing stuff in video games is viscerally satisfying. Going up in a game just feels good, right? Half your time in an Uncharted game is spent climbing. Breath of the Wild wouldn't be as fun if Link couldn't monkey crawl all over the place. There's just something pure about seeing something high up and going there. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today, Cairn. Lately we've been getting more games dedicated specifically to climbing. All that other boring stuff like shooting and dungeon crawling, it's being jettisoned for the simple act of pulling yourself up some steep cliff. Video games are about repetition and repeating on some central mechanic in new and interesting ways. So mountain climbing, specifically the free solo kind of climbing where it's just you and a vertical wall, it's really a good thing for a game. It works. Stuff like Jusant, Peak, Insurmountable, these all have their own unique mark that they've made on this growing subgenre of games. And today, we're looking at Cairn. This is the latest from the Game Bakers, the guys who did Fury. That was a hard-as-balls boss rush game, and Cairn, at least in theory, should be a lot more easygoing and chill. I mean, it's just you and a mountain. Nobody's trying to kill you. No bullet hell going on here. How tense can it be? The pre-release material made Cairn look like a Zen-like experience, but let me tell you, it is not. Cairn is basically baby steps, except you're moving vertically instead of horizontally. And before we get into what exactly I mean by that, I gotta quickly ask you to click subscribe. Most of you who are watching are not subscribed, so it's a good time to do exactly that. It helps us out a ton, and we hope it helps you see some stuff you want to see. Thanks for clicking subscribe. Let's get on with it. Cairn, this game is tense as hell. It starts off rough, and it only gets more nerve-wracking from there. If you're going into this thing thinking it's going to be like Jusant, let me dissuade you from that notion immediately. Cairn is brutal. It is perhaps more brutal than Fury, depending on your disposition. If you're that kind of person who likes to rush, Cairn is going to be infuriating because it demands careful, cautious, deliberate action. One wrong move will kill you, and if you die, it's possible to lose up to a half an hour of progress. It's gonna be frustrating. There are certain moments in this game when it is hard to tell why exactly you slipped here but not here, and after a while, that sort of inconsistency kind of feels like it's part of the experience. If you do play carefully, there's not a lot to worry about. A slip isn't the end of the world as long as you're properly setting pinions so there's no danger of falling to your death. The temptation is always there to push on and overextend yourself, and you're going to be kicking yourself for screwing up if you do that. What I'm saying here, this is a challenging game, a very challenging game even, but it's not just the climbing mechanics to keep it tense, it's also the constantly draining meters and resource management, which is always putting you on a time crunch. And time crunch makes you feel like you gotta move faster. The game is nice enough to give you a breather after tough climbs with a more open exploratory location, but that's only enough to keep the game from being unbearably tense. It's challenging, it is repetitive, it's honestly even kind of exhausting, but it's also really good if you have the grit to persevere, that is. It is not a game for everybody. I want to say that I don't think everybody is going to like this game, but if it clicks with you, it's really going to click with you. For that group of people, there's a lot to like here, starting with the mechanics. The basics of climbing are very simple, deceptively so. You have 4 limbs, you move them individually in sequence to climb. When you approach a wall, you move your hand, then your other hand, then your foot, then your other foot. To get anywhere, you got to remain balanced, got to have a firm hand or a foothold, or both. Like, just putting your hand or foot on smooth rock isn't going to work. You need to find something to grip onto, and most of the time, there is something to grip onto. There are circumstances that exist in which you can get away with an unstable hold if your other appendages have more firm footing, so there is a lot of room for error here. How well you can hold on to surfaces depends on the type of rock or weather conditions you have. There's wind speed, there's other factors like hunger, thirst, morale, and yes, there are survival game mechanics here. They make a deceptively large amount of difference when it comes to your climbing performance as well. If you're hungry and thirsty, your stamina runs out faster, your grip is not as firm, you're more likely to make mistakes. So keeping your meters topped up is an absolute priority. For a character that's supposed to be an experienced climber, you start this journey with literally almost nothing. A measly little water bottle, some chocolate, a few climbing supplies, spare pinions, chalk. To survive, you have to depend on water sources and whatever bits of food you can find from abandoned packs or rare natural food sources to uncover, like fish, edible plants, and things like that. Water is an absolutely essential resource here. It's not just something you need to drink. It's also necessary for most cooking, which you're going to need to do if you want to keep your hunger meter full. All in all, the survival mechanics, they're not that intrusive. They're pretty straightforward, but they do give you more to think about besides just climbing. And climbing is not like the simplest thing you're ever going to do in your life. But I have to say, it's good that there's a reason to explore. Like, you have to go figure out what to do when your resources get low, because that tension starts ratcheting up pretty hard. The only real negative I have about the survival stuff is that certain foods give you status buffs that make it easier to go climb on something, but these buffs really have short timers. On what is an otherwise really deliberate game, like getting a 2-minute buff is kind of worthless if you've got 30 seconds left by the time you actually get to the place you want to climb. It is all very gamey though, and like, I mean that in the best way. The chalk you can apply makes you grippier for a limited amount of time so you can grab ledges, that kind of thing. I like those kinds of mechanics. I'm glad that they're here. On its own, the game would have felt a little slight without the additional inventory management and extra tools and stuff. The most obvious concession that this is a video game comes in the form of this personal climbing robot, which can be used to instantly deploy a tent and retrieve your batons when they're left behind. Having a robot doesn't make a lot of sense with the solitary nature of the journey, but it's helpful to have around, except for the rare time it gets stuck when you're trying to retrieve your batons. That makes it so you're stuck waiting and watching and desperately try to get around some obstacle for a few minutes. It's annoying. It's, I guess, not that big of a deal, but you don't actually get your batons back. They're kind of a rare and precious resource, so, I mean, it can be a bit of a hindrance. Like in something like Jusant, the baton allows you to make an artificial safe spot for yourself. When you use one, you can restore your stamina, access your bag. The danger with deploying these things is they take a bit to get out. You have to play a little mini game where you hit the middle sweet spot on this meter, or it can be damaged, or worse, not work. And there's also just the chance that it won't work for no reason. There's moments you just cannot get a decent grip. You're about to fall. A baton's your last chance to survive, but it's too late. At least your body gets the ragdoll treatment, so even though you lost a bunch of hard-fought progress, you do get to see your body flop down the side of a mountain for a minute. That's fun. You may not be happy about it, but at least, like, it's fun. Ragdoll is fun. There's a reason why Grand Theft Auto 4 is so funny when you hit things. Anyway, with most climbing games, what you can and cannot climb on is pretty obvious. The rules are pretty clearly defined, but not in Cairn. There will be moments where it seems like you're in good shape. Your character just loses grip anyway. With other parts, you feel like there's no way. The food, water, and morale meters combined with the invisible stamina only add to the vagueness of the climbing mechanics. And, I mean, it all ends up just being something you have to develop a feel for. Because what starts off as confusingly slow it starts making sense after experimentation. The important thing to keep in mind, keep a steady balance, don't overextend at any one body part. Your hands, more often than not, need to have a stable grip. Your feet are necessary for reaching higher areas, because you can only boost yourself as high as your legs will allow. It all sounds a little confusing, but in practice, climbing's actually pretty intuitive. I compared it to baby steps, but I mean that only literally. From the perspective of somebody actually engaging in one of these games, it's a lot more intuitive than baby steps. Like, for such a complex system, it's really impressive how rarely I ran into problems. Sure, sometimes the uneven terrain, you got a hand or a foot somewhere it's not supposed to go, but with a little waggling, it generally works. There is a story. It's not much to write home about. There's little notes and bits of world building you find climbing the mountain, and they're more interesting than the personal drama of the main character. It is cute that they try to have some kind of dramatic arc here, but I never really found the writing that interesting, at least with the human characters. The lore of the mountain, however, pretty engaging. There's actually a surprising amount of stuff to find off the beaten path, and if you put in a little extra effort, these optional locations are generally rewarding, not just with lore, but a special trinket or some supplies or something, so don't pass up on them. Visually, that's not going to knock your socks off or anything. You've been looking at it this whole time. It's not, like, astounding. It's got some nice vistas. Generally looks pretty decent. The massive scale of the mountain is impressive, but, I mean, the graphics are mainly functional. They don't stand out a whole hell of a lot. There's also a little awkwardness to the world, especially the animation. Sometimes, after falling, you just teleport straight back to your feet. Or let's say you try to remove yourself from a ledge that causes you to eject from the wall at an uncomfortable speed. Stuff like this makes some of the climbing parts feel maybe needlessly dangerous. Like, there's parts when your character is in danger of falling over on essentially flat terrain. That's kind of weird that the game doesn't recognize that you're not on a wall, but you're somehow still climbing. These sort of situations are few and far between, but they can happen, and they reveal some of the limitations of the climbing system. Most of the time works very well, very intuitive, feels very good, but you're going to find edge cases where it's not great. Ultimately, though, this game really does capture the thrills of climbing in a way I don't think any other game I've played has. It's super intense, it's laborious, at times it is hair-pullingly difficult, but but it is so satisfying when you finally get past the dicey-looking climb and reach the next ledge. The survival mechanics add a little bit of needed depth to the game, keeps things interesting, mixes it up, and honestly, it's nice that while you're spending a lot of your time looking at gray rocks, there are plenty of things that are open and give you a nice refreshing view of something. For $30, I definitely recommend Cairn to anybody who's enjoyed other climbing games or someone who is not afraid of a brutal challenge. It might take a while to figure out if the game works. It definitely takes a while to figure out what the game wants from you because it's not clear exactly what you're supposed to be doing all the time, but once you get the hang of the mechanics and the unusual controls, Cairn clicks. This game easily could have been a really unfun mess, but against all odds, they made it work. Not saying it's without its flaws. Anytime you dismount from a wall, it's a little terrifying, but for the most part, the game really works as intended, and it's a lot of fun to play. That's what I got to say about it. What do you think? Leave us a comment. Let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. Join the 1% Club. That gets you access to the Falcon Show, which goes up Saturdays. It's a blast. We're having a ton of fun making it. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.
Hey Albert, this is Chris. So, do you ever respond to voicemail? We have no way to know your location.